Thank you. Thank you for coming to this evening's Cedar Falls School Board Forum, which is sponsored by the NAACP of Black Hawk County and the Black Hawk Bremer County League of Women Voters. My name is Leandra Sunseri. I'm a resident of Cedar Falls and a member of the League. Carol Yates is representing the NAACP, and she's also a member of the NAACP. So, Carol?
Good evening to all of you. I want to tell you just a little bit about how this forum will work. We'll start with a few questions from Leandra and me as the moderators, and then alternate with audience questions. Audience members are encouraged to ask questions. There are paper and pencils available. A runner will get that to you if you need paper and pencil, and then get the questions to the screener. For the candidates, when we ask questions, we'll start with our candidate to the far left to begin with, and then progress from there, and then let the next candidate to the left be the first person to respond to the question. Candidates will have 2 minutes to answer each question. Our timer, Jerry Hageman, will hold up a card to let you know when the time is running out. Just so that we all know, Jordan Vernoy withdrew from the school board election, but his name will be on the ballot. Just wanted to be sure everyone knew that. We don't have two candidates tonight. Maybe they'll show up in a bit, Jordan Burr and Megan Witt.
So at this time, I'll simply introduce the candidates who are here. Jenny Leeper, who is running for the 2-year term, Nate Gruber, Jeff Orvis, Bette Peterson, and Tony Wood.
Nice to have everybody here. Okay, your first question. What experiences have you had professionally, personally, etc., that prepare you to serve on the Cedar Falls School Board?
Okay, so first of all, thank you everybody for coming, and thank you for hosting us tonight. I am actually in my 12th year as a school board member, so I am running for the 2-year position, really with the intent, we are going to have a very new and young board as we transition to this next board, so hoping to be able to, bring that experience as a transitionary person to help the board come on and understand what the district is and understand what our role is as a board member. I've had 3 students of my own go through the Cedar Falls Community School District. 2 of them have now graduated from college. My youngest is in college, and you're welcome, Board of Regents. I have had one at each of our wonderful public institutions. So that right there qualifies me for all sorts of fun stuff. But professionally, my background is in journalism. I was a writer, still continue to do that to this day. Did a lot of volunteering while my children were growing up. Started as a PTO president for Lincoln Elementary, and that's how I really, kind of got involved and interested in what was happening in our school district, kind of seeing what my kids were experiencing and wanting to get more involved. I was involved in one of our district committees when we were talking about the Iowa Corps, if everyone remembers when that was a big talking point, and then just really figured that it was an opportunity for me to give back both to my community and to the school district for so much that they gave my students. So did run for the board. My recent professional experience, I was at Hawkeye Community College for several years in their high school relations department, so anyone who is in the know with school districts, our students have opportunities to get college credit while in high school. And I'm now at UNI. I work in the Office of Admissions, so every day I get to see prospective Panthers come to our campus and really kind of help them understand the transformative power of learning and kind of help them discover what their path is going to be in that collegiate journey. So thank you again for having us.
Mr. Gruber?
All right. I'd like to also echo Jenny's thanks to the League of Women Voters of Black Hawk and Bremer Counties, the Black Hawk County NAACP, and everyone who was involved in organizing this. And thank you for inviting us to be able to speak to you and the public about our candidacies. I'm Nate Gruber, and I'm out seeking re-election to the school board. 4 years ago, I was looking for a way to serve my community. I have a vast background in education from all levels, currently teaching business at Waterloo West High School, but I have taught at and been involved in education at all levels, from serving on a local preschool board all the way to teaching and working at the University of Dubuque and subbing in the district, or in Waterloo and Cedar Falls for the past couple of years. I am a Cedar Falls parent. My wife and I jumped on the opportunity to move back to UNI back to Cedar Falls when she was offered a job at UNI. We have 2 children, Amelia, who is a 6th grader heading off to Pete next year, which is hard to believe, and Owen, who just started kindergarten this year, both at Orchard Hill. I'm running because I believe that public schools are a bedrock of our society. I strongly believe in the mission of public schools, and I believe I can do a lot of good to support that mission by continuing to serve on the school board. Like I said, as a parent, as an educator, and someone with experience in public policy and financial issues, I will continue to bring my broad experience to the board and use my voice to support our teachers, our staff, our students, and our community. And I will continue to strongly advocate for public schools at multiple levels and advocate for policies that help our teachers teach and students succeed.
Okay, Mr. Orvis.
This would be my 2nd term on the board if elected. So, of course, first that would be my primary experience. So I'm familiar with the obligations and the responsibilities it takes to be on the school board. My 2 children both graduated from Cedar Falls, went through Cedar Falls schools. I'm very happy with the education that they had here. My daughter is a nurse manager at a hospital in Ames, and my son is a physician at U of I hospitals and clinics. So they obviously had a great start, and I would like to continue to contribute that to this school. I'm an active member in my professional association. I'm on the board of directors for the Iowa State Education Association. I also stand in front of a classroom and have for the last 37 years. I'm an instructional coach and math teacher in Waverly Shell Rock, and I have quite a few different responsibilities, but on a daily basis, I can be working with administration, food service, transportation, special ed, fine arts, activities, athletics, pre-K to high school teachers, teacher librarians, guidance, support. I also help develop the professional development for our school district. I've negotiated contracts and worked with human resources on many occasions in many instances. So I have a good, strong understanding of not only what it takes to be an educator, but what it takes to be on the school board. I am happy to be able to do that and learn from Cedar Falls schools, as well as be able to contribute some of what I've learned as a Waverly Shell Rock teacher. So I would be more than happy to be back on this board and represent the Cedar Falls School District. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Peterson.
Okay, I guess I'll just go back to thanking the Black Hawk County NAACP and the Black Hawk Bremer County League of Women Voters, and Leandra and Carol for being the moderators, as well as the Cedar Falls City for hosting. I am Beth Peterson. I am the only person who has not been on the board yet, I hope. I do bring 30-plus years of teaching experience to the game. I taught in Waterloo, taught special needs deaf students for that time. And as a result of having spent that much time in a school, I have worked with all kinds of people in the school systems. I think that's just a natural part of that. I am a strong supporter of public education, having taught, of course, and also we sent our daughter to the Cedar Falls schools, and she has chosen to come back to this community and raise her family here. So I think that's a very good plus to say for our schools. As a board member, I would hope to continue that longstanding tradition of excellence in the Cedar Falls schools while working with my fellow board members to improve the areas that are identified as in need, and look forward to doing that in the future.
Ms. Wood.
Hi, I'm Tony Wood. I also would like to thank everybody who has been involved with creating tonight's event. I am originally from Moline, Illinois. I've been here for 12 years. My husband teaches at UNI in mathematics. Our twins, Orson and Tabitha, are both 9, and they go to Lincoln. So, hey. I also have never been on the board. So I'm hoping that if I was on the board, that I would like to see our schools be a safe and inclusive environment for all of our kids. There's a lot of things that we're up against, and I think that together the board could work to make things that are already good, and things that aren't working better. My background is in theater and journalism, so I am familiar with working with groups of people and working together as a team. I've worked with community theater here in Cedar Falls and Waterloo. I'm currently the treasurer for the Art and Culture Board for the city of Cedar Falls. I've served on the PTO at Aldrich when they first started, and we were there the first year. I've assisted with things at Lincoln with their PTO and in the library there, and I've just had a wonderful experience working in these different schools and seeing what teachers do every day and how kids love being there. And I just really hope to continue that sort of love for education to continue.
Thank you.
Our next question is an audience question. That's also very similar to one of the moderator questions, so I'm going to merge the two. And Mr. Gruber will start. What is your opinion on the state mandating banning books for local school districts, such as books dealing with LGBTQ plus people, race, free speech?
Well, I'll kind of fold this into some of my priorities for continuing to serve on this school board. One of those priorities is to continue to try to protect academic freedom and rights as granted by the First Amendment by keeping books in libraries and classrooms and allowing teachers and staff, as the professional content experts that they are, to use those materials that are appropriate for the course as they see fit. This is in part why I enthusiastically signed the Annie's Foundation Freedom to Read Pledge last month. I also requested that our school administrators err on the side of keeping books in classrooms and in libraries when they develop our policies to conform to SF 496. I will not support any attempts to remove books from our classrooms and libraries. I understand that the educational landscape has shifted significantly in the 4 years since I was first elected. Public policy at the state level has targeted and tightened it around academic freedom and First Amendment over what is and isn't acceptable, what is and isn't acceptable in a classroom is being quickly redefined by a small majority with an agenda. And while I support the parents' right to determine what materials their children have access to, that right does not allow them to make that same determination for the rest of society. A society that attempts to ban books, even in limited circumstances, is starting down a slippery slope that many find appalling.
Okay, thank you.
Well, the first thing I would say is I would not ask any of our staff to break the law. We don't have a choice of which laws that we are going to obey and which ones we are going to ignore. I'm not going to ask any of our staff to risk their license or have the school brought up on a lawsuit that could end up taking away precious resources. Having said that, I have complete faith in our teacher librarians and the books that they select. I have faith in our materials review committee and a materials review process. I do believe this is a public school, and although I may not agree with some of the people that come forward and say this is legitimate or this is not a good fit for our school, that I'm going to listen to that message and take it on the merits for what it is. I would want to make sure that if anything came before the board, I would have a good understanding of what it is, what the objection is, and the context in which that objection was made, and listen to it for its merits. The law as it stands generally has two primary facets to it, whether or not it is pornographic is one of the situations, and the other is whether or not it's age appropriate. And both of those are not necessarily clearly defined terms. And schools are hesitant right now to make some of those calls, and I understand that because they don't want to spend that time or those resources in court for a case that their attorneys have already told them that they may lose. However, like I said, I have complete faith in our materials review process, and I would want to make sure that I understand what the context is and what the objection is to any materials that they may consider offensive.
This is a subject, I think, that has come up with many people that I have visited with about banning books. It's certainly very high on the list for people of concern. I would echo, I think, what Jeff has said about protecting our staff. You know, having been a teacher, I know that that's kind of a scary thing, you know. The issue of coming at the staff person can be kind of scary. You know, it's like, well, I'm keeping this book, and then all of a sudden you're the target. So I think, you know, we need to protect our employees, and we can't go against the law. I did visit with Dr. Petit about this because I kind of wanted to get a clearer idea about where do we stand and how are we going to deal with this. It's my understanding that the district has a team that consists of the curriculum director, the school librarians, and teachers, and that they will be reviewing the books and trying their best to, you know, follow the law as the law says which books are appropriate and which are not. I think that's the way to go. I don't think we can depend on parents, public, people telling us not this book, yes, this book. We have professionals. That's why we hire people to do that. And apparently then, if there's an objection, if there still remains an objection, there's a protocol in place for review of that. As a board, then we have to kind of step back so that we can be the buffer in between. And I guess that, you know, at this point, I think that that's what we need to sit with and let that happen, let that process happen. It's not solid yet, for sure.
One of my backgrounds is in Holocaust history, and I can tell you from that nothing good has ever come from book bans. That being said, I agree with whatever everyone has said about protecting teachers. It's very important to do that. Protecting parents' rights, SF 496 claims that it's protecting parents' rights to be able to have their kids read or not read anything, but that's also affecting my kids and everybody else's kids in the district. It should be up to me what my kids are reading, not what nobody else should have that say. There's also something very important that I haven't heard yet, that books are a mirror, and if you take certain experiences out of libraries, there's going to be kids who are not going to see themselves, and they're going to feel that their experiences maybe aren't valid or aren't important, and why do I matter? It's like the books help kids understand that their experiences also matter.
Okay, thank you.
So as a board, one of our roles, we actually have very defined roles as board members, and I didn't understand that when I first came on the board, and you do come to appreciate that. So what we can do as board members, we set policy, we approve the budget, we manage the superintendent contract, and then we are the liaison between the district and the public and, our stakeholders. So, as boards, again, we set policy. We do have policies in place. We continue to look for additional guidance from the state. I think that's the big piece that's missing for a lot of districts right now is, what do these terms mean? What do they specifically are going to result in for our teachers and our school librarians and our media specialists? That's really lacking right now. I think more so as a board member where we really have power. First of all, I will tell all of you in this room, your voices are more powerful than my voice as a board member. When I go to Des Moines, many of our legislators assume I have an agenda, they assume they know what I'm going to say, but individual parent voices and student voices are extremely powerful at the state capitol. So I encourage everyone to use your voice and go down and make sure that you are sharing with our elected officials how this is impacting your classroom, your student, your family, because that's a very powerful way to articulate to our elected officials what this actually means. We are a board of 7. We are not a board of 7 individuals. We are a board of 7, and we are here to make sure that our teachers are protected, and that is going to be, we are bound to follow the law in what we do in our classrooms and our decisions. But I think where we have a very powerful piece is in that liaison piece to our stakeholders, our parents, and our public. I think it is important for us to be able to use our circles of influence and go outside of those circles to places that maybe we are uncomfortable with and people who have different opinions than us, and try to educate them onto how these policies are actually impacting our students and why it is important that we are allowing discomfort to exist, because learning comes from a place of discomfort, and that's very important, and I think that's where our true power at the board table lies.
Okay. The next question is about educational savings account vouchers. And let's see, who are we starting with? with Mr. Orvis. Okay. How do you feel that these funds will possibly affect the Cedar Falls district as more vouchers become available in the following years? And what is one way you think, as a school board member, you could help the district overcome the financial loss to vouchers?
There's no doubt that the spending on vouchers has had a significant economic impact on the state. We just saw recently that we, meaning the legislature, had underestimated the budget for these vouchers at approximately $20 million. And the predictions right now seem to look like that's only going to accelerate as more and more people become eligible for these. I'm not sure where that money is coming from, but my guess would be every one of those students that has a voucher in a private school will be taking money away from, or a large chunk of money away from, a public school. The public schools offer this opportunity that we may not get in many other circumstances, and that is to be able to work with people of different backgrounds and different cultures, and that's one of the true strengths of public education. I do think that Cedar Falls needs to take that opportunity to boast about themselves. We do so many great things here as a school district, and I believe that it'd be hard to go through the entire list, but CAPS is right on the top. I know Jenny is that's one of her areas that she champions for it, and for good reason. We have some very successful students coming out of that program. The amount of money that's being spent here really does seem quite a bit, and Cedar Falls will probably compete better than many schools. I don't want to see some of these smaller school districts end up having to consolidate or close. I know it's a heart of a city when they lose one of their schools, and I really don't want to see that. There's no doubt that this is going to have a negative impact on quite a few school districts. Cedar Falls will need to compete, and I think we can do that by keeping a positive message out there. We're building attractive new facilities, and I'm hoping we can get some really good staff here that would help overcome some of those issues.
Just a little piece of information, I guess, that I think we all might need to be aware of. Earlier this week, the statistic was that in Cedar Falls there were 90+ vouchers issued for students that had not been enrolled in the district last year. So that would be kindergartners who potentially would have been enrolled this year. So at $7,600 per student, that's money lost to Cedar Falls. I think what we need to do is make sure that people understand that private schools do not have to accept your student. I don't think a lot of parents, families understand that unlike the public school, which is why it's a public school, you can't just walk in and enroll your child. That private school can say, it's not working out so well. We're not going to keep your child. Or we don't really have the services, having taught special needs children, 3 weeks down the road, we don't have the support services for your child. Then it's a matter of, well, either we're not going to provide them and just kind of fake it for a year, or, you better not keep them here. And then you as a parent are kind of in a jam. I don't think a lot of people understand that about private schools. And I'm all for, if you want to send your child to private school, you should do that, but not on my tax dollar, sorry. So that's kind of where I stand on vouchers, I guess. And I think, but we need to talk to people about that, and I think that would help our schools. We have a lot to offer in Cedar Falls, and as do, I think, many public schools, and I think that we need to sell that.
I just will flat out say public money belongs in public schools. It's 2 points, though, I do want to make. If families are leaving, we need to see why. Are they leaving because they want more of a religious upbringing for their kids, for their education? Clearly, as a public school, that's not something that public schools do. But if people are leaving because of, say, bullying or class size or other issues that perhaps the school board could look at and see if those are things that we could work with and perhaps get those students to come back to us, that is something that we should also look at. Bet brought up an excellent point that private schools don't have to take every student. They don't have the same rules that public schools have to go by in order to accommodate students. And I think that would be a detriment to a lot of students. So I would personally also say that I would advocate to maybe not overturn things, but to advocate for getting funds back to public schools as well.
So I think you're going to find most of us are unanimous about not being fans of vouchers. So, I am a strong proponent of the separation of church and state, and that argument seems to have kind of just been, everyone's kind of thrown their hands up about that, which is extremely concerning. What I think is another concern that does not get brought up, and we've alluded to it, is at private schools, at home schools, there is no accountability like there is for public schools. We are held to very high account, and there are measures, there are assessments constantly happening to make sure that our students are progressing and learning and growing. And that is not something that is bound by schools or families that are going to be taking advantage of vouchers. And I think that's going to end up being a disadvantage for many of those students. Not all of those students. There are some very quality private schools, and there are some great families who are very good at being homeschool parents. But again, I agree with the point that public money does not belong outside of a public school. What I think we can do in Cedar Falls is continuing to grow what we do. We have a great product, folks, and I think sometimes we get focused on the negative parts that we're dealing with, but we have a lot of amazing things happening in our school district, and if we can continue on that track and continue to grow alternative programming like CAPS, partnering with Waterloo at their Career Center, we are putting out a lot of students who are getting real-world application of their knowledge. It's relevant, it's experiential, it's something where they are never asking, why am I learning this? We are showing them every day in our classrooms, this is what you're gonna do with the stuff you're learning, and that keeps learning exciting. So if we can do that and try and instill that love of learning from kindergarten all the way to the time they are walking across that graduation stage, I do think we are going to be able to hold off on the harm that vouchers are going to do to us, because we have just amazing staff. I do think Jeff is absolutely right. Retention of staff is going to be a big piece for us. I think that's going to be one of all of our concerns right now, not only just given the difficulty of being a teacher and the wages, but the current state that teachers are kind of trying to function under on a day-to-day basis. So keep doing what we're doing, Cedar Falls. It's going to be good. Let's go.
Yeah, but to echo exactly what Jenny said at the beginning of her statement, there's not anything I have heard up here that I disagree with. We have, if there's something that has shown me my first 4 years serving on the board, is that Cedar Falls Schools is one of our strongest assets in this community. We have fantastic programs from CAPS, athletics. I think I heard something about some over 50 musicians were selected for the All-State Music Festival this past weekend from Cedar Falls. So our art, our performing arts and arts programs are also off the charts. We have a lot going for us. I think in the short run, as far as the impact of vouchers, I think we're in a pretty good spot in the short run. My concern is when the private schools start to build up capacity to accommodate like the 90+ vouchers that were referenced. I think that's when we're going to start having to really start fighting for those students. But as echoed before, we have a lot going for us. We're opening a brand new building next year. That is going to be a fantastic facility for us for many, many decades. And I think one of the things that we can do is to continue to advocate with our state legislators, and like I said, maybe not repeal it, but we need to advocate for increased SSA and funding to come to us, because we got to do something with that budget surplus. We might as well spend it on our schools.
Thank you.
Okay. Next question. This also is a audience question, and it will go first to Bette Peterson. It's sophisticated, so listen up.
Okay.
Ready?
Ready.
Board members are expected to have goals that reflect common values and core beliefs of the school community. Our school community is composed of children with diverse beliefs, values, ethnicity, cultures, and socioeconomic status. If elected, how will you support our school body as a whole? And will you be able to set aside your core values to listen and learn about others' core values and needs?
Wow. Well, yeah, I will. I will. Honestly, I think having lived a life as long as I have been exposed to a very wide variety of people with a diverse background, different values, just a wide variety of people. And having taught for as many years as I did, the same thing. And one of my big concerns, honestly, in living in Cedar Falls and in the schools in Cedar Falls is increasing the diversity in the schools. I'm not, I'm concerned about our kids being exposed to a more diverse population. And I want that for students. I think that grows better adults. So, yeah, I think that the mental health situation in schools is very important, and I think that that's something that we really need to focus on and make sure that all students feel welcome in the district, that their families feel welcome, that the educators feel welcome, and that we support those people. If their mental health is good, then everything goes better from there. They're going to learn. If they're not safe, if they don't feel safe, if they don't feel welcome, then they don't learn. So I don't think I would have any trouble flexing my core values at all.
I said it before, I want our kids to have a safe and inclusive environment where they can learn. I think that it's important to have all families who are in the district reflected back to, it's just really important for diverse beliefs and socioeconomic backgrounds to all be honored and to see our students for who they are and where they're at. I know I will always listen. even if somebody comes to me and are telling me something that perhaps I don't necessarily believe in or I don't agree with, I will still take them at their concern, that their concern is coming from about their children. So I think, like Beth said, it's just very important to have a diverse background. And the more people that our children come in contact from different areas of the world, different areas of financial backgrounds, different countries, I think that will just make for our students to have a much better education. That sort of inclusivity is very important.
So during my board tenure, I will say I have very much come to appreciate that it is important we have diverse views sitting at the board table. We do represent everyone in our district, and if we can build relationships with each other, we can have those difficult conversations. And the reality is that some of my best friends that I've made in my 12 years on the board, I do think we all still have common values and beliefs. I mean, I think when it comes to the core, we do have very similar, values, but we have different opinions on things and different concerns. And we've had the opportunity to become friends, to really appreciate and respect each other. And then we've had amazing conversations that we have both learned from each other as to why there are fears, why are there concerns, and the why is really what we're trying to get at. What is the root of those fears? What is the root of those concerns? So I do think it's really important that we as board members come to the table understanding that we are here to put students first. We're not here to talk about adult problems or adult opinions. We are here to put the best holistic health and academic strength of our students first. And I've been lucky. I think every board member that we've served with, that I have served with, has had that as their main agenda, if you will, for being a board member. As a district, what I am really happy that we are doing is we are focusing on social emotional learning very intentionally right now. And I wish I knew that as a parent. It would have made me a much better parent because we're looking at we're talking about root of problems. If a student is acting out or not doing well, there's typically a pretty good reason behind that. It's not that they just don't want to learn, they don't want to behave. There's usually something happening in their life that we may not know about. So working with our teachers and our staff and our paras through professional development to help them understand what social emotional learning looks like, how to de-escalate with students, how to work with students and recognize that there may be something happening in their day that means that what's in front of them on their desk isn't really the most important for them at that moment. It's showing them that we care about them as an individual and we are here to help them be successful and be safe and really just show that we care about them. So I think that is a great thing we are doing as a district right now.
Yeah, I want to echo especially what Bet said, and I'm sure what Jeff will allude to as well. As educators, we have, as an educator myself, I spend every day working with diverse populations of thought and color and all sorts. That's my job. I have to be able to put aside my values and be able to address the needs of my students in the room with me at that moment. As far as my service on the board so far, a couple of years ago, I decided I wanted to find a way to do more in the area of diversity and equity. And so I joined our equity committee as a board member. And we have been working to expand and develop those opportunities for marginalized groups. The program that I'm pretty excited about is the MURE program. And I don't know if you've heard about MURE, but the basic gist of it is to identify and support students of color from Cedar Falls who have an interest in education, help them get through a teacher education program, and then provide them the opportunity to come back to Cedar Falls schools and work. We're partnering with UNI. I think we have at least one of our MURE program members at UNI currently as a graduate, and then we have several more who have signed up as high school students to take that same path and attend UNI and get their teaching degree. I have also, as part of my work on the equity committee, I have helped to I was one of the ones who helped draft our DEI statement that applies for the district, and I'm proud of the work we've done as far as developing professional development opportunities for our staff along the lines of DEI and social emotional learning that Jenny monitored or referenced. So, thank you.
I mentioned before one of the strengths of public schools is the opportunity for our children to be exposed to a whole host of diverse situations, diverse people. My own kids went to Orchard Hill, and at the time, married student housing was part of Orchard Hill School District. And my kids had a great opportunity to meet children of UNI students from all over the world, and it was a great experience and a very eye-opening experience for them. But this isn't just about national origin or race. I mean, it also includes gender and culture and socioeconomic class. I was speaking to a teacher today who told me she hated Halloween, and the reason she hated Halloween was because so many people pour so much financially into Halloween costumes. And I know this sounds strange, where am I going with this in 2 minutes? But she said, you know, I always felt left out because my family could never afford that. And I think that empathy that our kids can get from being around people who may not have the means that they have or may not have the advantages that they've had in life opens up their eyes and gives them some empathy. And it also means being around some people who may have different political views than you do, and you're going to have to put up with that from time to time in your life, and that exposure definitely helps. I was going to mention, as Nate had mentioned, our cadet teachers. I'm not sure if that's the term. That's a popular term, that getting students interested in education, but in educational fields. But I believe staff diversity would be one of those things that we could reach out for and try to work to find teachers of a wide background and represent some of the faces that are in front of them in their classrooms every day.
Okay, thank you. The next question, and we'll start over with Tony Wood. It's widely known that there is an issue with teacher shortage, teachers leaving education, and teacher burnout. What are your thoughts on why this is, how to support our teachers, and make our district desirable for teachers to want to stay and work here?
Okay, that's a good question.
That's an audience question.
That is an honest question. I think it's a good question. I mean, COVID obviously was a huge burnout factor. There was just a lot going on with that nobody saw coming. And teachers did rise to the challenge, but it was hard. It was hard for them to do everything that they needed to do in order to help kids learn. I think that one thing that we could do is, and I know there are laws that we have to obey, and there are things that we have to do because it's what we legally have to do. But there are a lot of things that a lot of the legislation that has come up recently is going to hog up a ton of time that teachers could be using to educate. Somehow figuring a way to mitigate some of that would be very helpful. I think the idea of having our school district be inclusive and open and welcoming to people of all backgrounds works not just for the students, but it also works for the teachers, because if they see that they are also reflected in their classrooms, that will, I think, help make a much better place for people to want to work, to want to come to and stay.
So, you know, a harsh reality, again, I was trying to be all sunshine and roses, but the reality is, I mean, it is a really hard time to be a teacher right now. I think, you know, and it was in the not too distant time, even if we all had different views in this room, we could all come together and know that we would support our local teachers, especially at our local elementaries. I mean, we loved our teachers. And for some reason, the divisiveness at the national level has now come down to a point where we have, you know, pretty welcome and openly villainized teachers for all the evils that we see, you know, that are sprouting their head right now. So I do think that's going to continue to be a reality for a while. And I think that for the longevity of the profession, I'm seeing that at UNI. We have students who come in as they're really excited to go into classrooms and be teachers, and they have their Field 1 level experiences and are deciding the classroom is not a place that they want to be. So I don't have an easy answer for that. I think Bet mentioned it earlier, mental health is something that we have got to address as a state. We have got to find funding for mental health in our classrooms. We are asking our teachers to not only teach, but to regulate behaviors that they have not necessarily been trained to do, to manage classrooms that are full of students who have a wide spectrum of needs. Thank goodness we have paras. I think that is something we could try to continue to work to support our paras, to find livable wages for our paras, because they are so critical to the success in our classroom right now. I think mental health is a big key to that. And then I think we need to continue. We do PLCs, professional learning communities in our district. That does allow our teachers to build strong relationships both with each other, and then they kind of embrace all of the students within their team as one. It allows our teachers to help address those spectrum of needs that our students have, so that they are looking at the individual education plan for every single student in that grade level or that classroom by working with each other and collaborating. So I think our continued work and support of the PLC process is something that's going to be critical for supporting both the professional and just personal health of our teachers.
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier that I'm a teaching business audit at Waterloo West, and what I didn't mention there is that this is my first year teaching, and something I vastly underestimated. I worked for years as a substitute teacher. Something I vastly underestimated, though, as a full-time teacher is just how hard this job is and how much time and effort I am working nightly and on weekends just getting stuff ready for the next day. 4 years ago, I ran explicitly to help bring another voice to the board from the teacher's point of view. Something I said last year and last time around, and I still would like to see it happen, but I would like to see some of the permissive bargaining items put back into our contracts when we go to negotiate with our collective bargaining units. I know that's a heavy lift, but it's still something I would like to see put back in. I think it would put Cedar Falls into one of those categories of districts that would make it unique in Iowa and make it a place that teachers would strongly look at, because they would have more protections. And then current employees would find it more attractive to stay long-term. I think, as Jenny alluded to, a lot of the national conversation around education and some of these divisive issues has filtered down here. So the things about respecting teachers, while I would love to come up here and say that I could wave a magic wand and make that happen, that's quite a bit beyond the control of a local school board and any individual member. But yeah, I will always stand in strong support of our teachers and our staff. I know how hard the job is, and I will do everything I can to help make that job a little easier for our staff here in the district.
Of course, the problem here is being toward the end of the line, it gets harder and harder to say something unique. And I have seen teachers lately vilified when they should be respected. Some good friends of mine recently have been up against some issues. And trust, that we have seemed to have lost trust in our staff. And I don't want to just limit this to teachers. This includes all of our staff. We're going to have shortages trying to find paraeducators, food service workers. We already are desperately trying to get bus drivers. So it doesn't stop there. And these are some of the critical people. People don't realize how much impact some of our support staff in particular have on our students. A few things that aren't in control of the board since the reform of the Chapter 20 bargaining laws. One of the things that just doesn't seem to make sense to me is that one of the excluded topics of discussion is insurance, but as soon as we sit down in negotiations, it's one of the first things that comes up. You cannot talk about wages without having to talk about health insurance at the same time. So that would be one of the things I would love to see get changed, at least include insurance as a mandatory topic of bargaining. Some other things that are hurting, and we've mentioned this with the finances already, and that is that as the amount of money goes down, the class sizes go up, and that's a critical factor in how effective a teacher can be. Some other things, though, that we need to look at, one would be we need to support our early educator, our early career teachers, and we have a good mentoring program in place now, but I want to see that continue. And I'd also like to see us start to pay stipends for student teachers. They're paying tuition at the same time, and it's very difficult for many people to actually get into the field.
And last, all that, yes. You know, again, having done this job for a very long time, I absolutely, you know, Nate, lots of hours, absolutely, you know, I did it, you know, show up at work at 7:30 in the morning or 7, and you're there at 5:30, and it's maybe time to go home. I know it is a beyond full-time job, and I don't know what the best answer is. I know the money is the money. You just can't offer more money. You'd like to. There's just the constraints. I think a lot of it, sometimes I just remember thinking, if somebody could just hear what we have to say, just listen to what we have to say, what could help us. I think as teachers, the teachers understand there's not money. If there's not money, there's not money. You can't offer more money if you don't have it. But just some of the concerns, the mental health thing, I think, is paramount. Those kids are coming more and more with behaviors that are just beyond the scope of trying to deal with in a classroom. And if we can, you know, we're pairing up with the Blackhawk Grundy Mental Health, if we can continue to offer services and try to help. But I think getting in there and asking what is the issue, how can we help? We did have 100% certified staff hired before the school year started this year, which kudos to Cedar Falls. That's wonderful. The rest of the staff, you know, the rest of the support staff, we had some holes, and we still do. So, and you have, you know, some hiring concerns there. But, you know, I think this is a great place, and people want to teach here, and that's a great thing. But I think we need to retain staff, and we need to find out what people want, what people need, and what can we offer.
This is also an audience question, and we'll start with Jenny Leeper. It addresses an issue some of you have already mentioned. Surrounding districts compensate their paraprofessionals $16 to $18 an hour, where Cedar Falls compensates at $13 an hour. Cedar Falls currently has 11 paraeducator positions open. Do you feel raising the compensation to compete with surrounding districts would make these positions more desirable to qualified candidates?
School finance is difficult. It's not easy, and, you know, as Beth said, it's not a case of just simply offering more wages. Those are bargained wages. We have multiple groups that we bargain with, and the reality is that there is push and pull between all of that bargaining as we try to work with what we get for new money every year and determine how best to spend those funds. When we look at everything we do spend money on. If we hire a new teacher, if we start a new program, there are choices that are made within a district as to how we're prioritizing that. I do think within our district, even though there may be higher pay in neighboring districts, I do think there are things that we still have as a draw in our district that don't make up for the differential in wage, but there are reasons that people want to be paras in our district. One thing that I really was proud of we did as a district, we partnered with UNI to offer a Purple Pathway program to some of our paras who chose to qualify or apply to that program. We're taking paras who had an associate's degree already, and we were working with UNI to help them get to their bachelor's so they could become teachers, with the hope that we could then employ them as teachers in the district. So I think that, and that continues to be a program at UNI for anyone who's interested. So I do think helping our paras find that pathway to their bachelor's so that they can become full-fledged teachers is a way that we can continue to grow that. But I think all districts are going to continue to suffer a lack and not enough paras that we have in our classrooms. It is an extremely hard job that is not paid remotely what it needs to be paid for the difficulty level. And the reality is there is not an easy answer to that question. I hope one of my fellow board members here has the easy answer, because that'd be great. So Nate, off to you.
Well, Jenny, I wish I had the easy answer too. I mean, in a perfect world, I would say absolutely raising the pay would make these jobs in Cedar Falls for the para-education, try that again, para-educators more attractive. But as has been mentioned a couple times, school finance is complicated. The money is what it is. And, there's not an easy answer to this question, other than trying to get the state legislature and the state government to allocate more money to our districts at the state level in the form of SSA and not, at least, for good Lord, just at least keep up with the pace of inflation. So we're not basically facing a funding cut every year because the amount of money they handed us from the state coffers doesn't match how much the milk prices went up and the fuel prices went up over that year, and especially insurance premium prices. That's going to be a interesting conversation here in these next couple of years. I think I echo a lot with what Jenny said about some of the things that Cedar Falls does offer as a district in terms of attractiveness. Maybe we certainly can't necessarily match the pay to what some neighboring districts have, but there are things about working in Cedar Falls that are attractive to some individuals. The pathway to a bachelor's degree through UNI and through the district is a fantastic example of one of those benefits that we can offer that, while not directly with the wages, but it's something that could be a perfect opportunity for some of the educators in our system. But it's not an easy answer.
The easy answer is to increase state supplemental aid to schools. That would certainly help. And Jenny's right, that we do have to make trade-offs. If we increase pay here, that means either larger class sizes, a bus that doesn't, well, it wouldn't be a bus, but other situations that don't happen. But even as attractive as Cedar Falls may be as a school district, as a place to work, that we still have to compete with everybody else that's in the area. In my own experience, I mentioned several of the things that I do on my day-to-day work. One of them is setting up new staff on our computer systems, that sort of thing. So I'm usually one of the first ones to hear that we have new staff that we're hiring at Waverly Shell Rock, and oftentimes that person will be hired and will resign before they've ever set foot in the classroom because they know they can get better pay other places. So this is not an easy answer. I'd also tell you, though, that it's critically important. The paraprofessionals in particular are working with some of our more challenging students, and not just for 45 minutes a day like a high school classroom teacher. This would be an all-day situation, and I know these people have had a tremendous impact on these students' lives, and I'm so happy to see that. And it is something that we need to address. We need to find a way to attract people into that position. We're hiring more paraprofessionals than we had in the past, and we're offering that support, and that's part of that SEL, that social emotional learning support that we need, and we need to have well-trained, capable people to do that. And I'm not sure that $13 an hour is going to do it. I don't know the answer, but I don't think $13 an hour is the answer.
Yes, I don't think there is an easy answer. I don't think, obviously, if we don't have the money, we don't have the money. I think the one thing about the question, I guess, though, is sometimes, we don't really know the comparison. If we're talking about, a para in Cedar Falls versus a para in Dyke New Hartford, we don't, it might just not be a salary thing. We don't know how many paras they employ. What's that para covering in Dyke New Hartford? Are they, are there 2 in the elementary building as opposed to 5 in Cedar Falls? It might be a little bit of apple and oranges kind of thing. But it certainly, I know just the paras in Cedar Falls are not, unfortunately, not earning what they should. If you can go down to McDonald's and earn more money than you can at the elementary school or any of the schools, that is a very sad commentary, I think, on where we value education. That's not the board's fault, but it is this a society thing right now, and I think all we can do is try and get more money out of the legislature to try and boost that. And back we go to vouchers. It's money again. It's money that we don't have. And I don't think there's an easy answer at this point. I understand that we used to recruit family for paraeducators, grandparents. We had a lot of people doing that as the paraeducators in the district, but kids are tough these days. I'm not sure that's where you want your grandmother.
Well, here I am with no easy answers. Sorry, I don't have one either. I do agree it's important to raise the pay for paraeducators. I think it's important to keep up with the cost of living for anyone, teachers, paraeducators, bus drivers, food service workers, everyone. Clearly should have those things tied, but obviously the board, like it's been mentioned, our hands are tied by what the government, our state legislature, is going to give us. I do believe that I read that Governor Kim Reynolds was very interested in more pay for rural teachers. So perhaps there's an advocating component here where we could say, hey, you want to do this with rural teachers? Well, how about we look at paraeducators as like a class of employee who are so incredibly important to our schools, and that they are the ones who maybe need to have the focus next. I mean, again, no easy answers, obviously, but it's clear that it's something that needs to be not just aware of, but something that needs to have something done about.
Okay. We'll start with Nate Gruber on this question. Are there any specific ways in which board policies and actions could maintain and improve student learning about our civic life and our political institutions and processes? So any specific ways that this might be possible?
I know one of the main functions of a board, as Jenny has alluded to, is setting policy, budgets, and superintendent contracts and things like that. One of the things that I have learned over the past several years is that in terms of policy at the district level, that the district has a pretty set routine for reviewing and updating policy as we need to. I mean, if you've ever looked at our policy section on our website, it is extensive, and trying to update that over, so it takes a kind of a routine to kind of review those every 4 to 5 years on a scheduled basis. That doesn't leave a lot of, this board does a lot more governance and does not do a lot of active policy making in terms of beyond what we have. We kind of review what we our current policies, not a lot of new policies coming out.
Okay. Mr. Orvis?
One of the things I've noticed, I have a chance to work with staff from all across the state, educators from across the state, and I've noticed there's quite a bit of similarity in school board policies, and that's not by accident. That's because a lot of these are written and vetted by the Iowa Association of School Boards, and so you'll notice a lot of similarity between one school and another in their school board policies. So ours probably aren't as that especially unique. I can't think of any one in particular that stands out as being unusual in our situation. It's very comparable to other schools. The big part of the reason for that is that people want to make sure that these policies are enforceable, that they meet our state laws and U.S. Constitution. And of course, then when we start getting legal advice, we're going to start listening to that and making sure that our policies are in line with that. At least on a local scale, one of the things I've noticed, we do follow the state standards in terms of what we have for our social studies courses and our humanities courses. And the work of our, we call them PLCs, I'm sorry if we abbreviate too much, our professional learning communities, and a chance for our teachers and staff to collaborate with each other. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they're all teaching exactly the same way, but when a student is finished with that class, all students should have had a similar experience. And I do trust that probably more than our impact of board policy would be those things that we do to help find and attract good staff. That's where it always starts.
Did I understand your question was asking how to involve students in the policy?
Let me reread it, okay?
Thank you. Yeah.
Are there any specific ways in which board policies and actions could maintain and improve student learning about our civic life and our political institutions and processes?
Wow. Well, yeah. I honestly don't know. You know, I don't know what board policy at this point could be, you know, could improve the things for students. There are a lot of policies. I did open that file and, you know, I don't know. I couldn't tell you at this point, I guess, would be my answer, yeah.
All right, thank you.
So the question was asking about civic, well, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, civic life and our political institutions and processes.
So if I'm understanding that question correctly, I think what's being asked is how could students see maybe themselves in a future working in civics and learning how what their place is in the government, perhaps, if that's what I'm understanding. I believe Jeff said something about the state standards for civics are there. If we're talking in terms of not necessarily student involvement, but student observing of how a board functions, then, yeah, I'm not 100% sure I understand.
Do you want me to read it completely again? Or
No,
just
I mean,
go
I
on?
understand, I mean, I'm just not, I feel like there's something not behind the question, but there's more to the question that I'm not.
Perhaps how a democracy works.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so, okay, no, thank you for the clarification. I think that, I don't know how much board policy would be involved with that, but I think that there could be opportunities for students to be more observant of like what the board does and see how like board policy is created and where it comes from, if that is what I'm understanding.
Okay, thank you.
So I think this is a great example where we as board members need to stick to our defined roles. And honestly, this would not be a place where policy is probably appropriate. The state has identified essential skills and learnings for everyone in our state. As Jeff said, all of our teachers have the freedom to kind of get to those learnings and essential skills in their own creative way, but those have been identified for us. Curriculum, we have professionals in our district who pilot curriculum, who research new curriculum, bring them to us for approval, but that is not something that we as board members really get in and dig our fingers into because that is not within our role. So it is really important for people to understand what a board does have the authority to do and what the board does not have an authority to do. And it's important that we as board members are trusting our hired professionals. The one hire we get to do is our superintendent, so hopefully we have hired the right person to lead our district. I believe we have done that as a board. And then we trust that our administrators, our principals, our teachers, our paras, we have hired the right people to be able to implement those curriculums and teach those essential skills and learnings. I think all of us who have had students go through the district feel we confidently do that very successfully. So I do think this is a great opportunity for everyone. You can go to the Iowa Association of School Boards website, and it lays exactly out what we do as board members and what we do not, and it is important that we honor those roles because that is how we best support our district.
This is a moderator question. And I believe Mr. Orvis is next. Would you like to see mental, physical health services expanded for Cedar Falls schools?
Absolutely. Next.
No.
Good answer.
If so, how?
Sorry, I didn't mean to be flip about it. This is actually a very serious subject, and especially since COVID, I've seen it in my own classes, that students and staff do struggle more day to day and feel less secure than they have. The other thing that I think we need to recognize is that mental and physical health are really not two separate entities, that they're really the same thing, that physical exercise that students get from our PE classes, for instance, really helps enliven them. It helps their day, it helps their mental functioning throughout the day, and it helps their emotional development as well. But we absolutely need support for not just our students, but our staff. This, again, we go back to the number of psychiatric beds available for some of our younger people, that we really need to do better as a state in order to do this. Cedar Falls, I think, has done a good job in working with social and emotional learning, and I think we're starting to better understand the connection between both mental and physical health. And I hope that we continue down that road.
Yes. Also, extremely important, I think. Physically, I think kids, staff, everybody, we need to continue to encourage everyone to take good care of themselves, to be in the best health that they can physically. I'm not, I don't think we need to be out running around the block all day long, but I do think that we need to encourage people to take care of themselves and try to be as healthy as they can, the little ones as well as the adults in the building. One on the sheet that you gave us initially, one of the things was one of our priorities. And for me, it's, that as a district that we're preparing healthy young adults intellectually, emotionally, and physically to go forward in the world. And I think all three of those things are very important. As I've said a number of times, mental health is just a huge issue for me. I just think that has to be first and foremost. And if if people are not physically well, then they're not mentally well. And I think we need to, encourage everyone in the district to, take care of themselves in both of those regards and do what we can to support those things.
I also agree, surprisingly. Iowa is just a really bad state to be in as far as mental health care goes. I work at Mercy One in Waterloo, and obviously without breaking HIPAA, there's stuff I see, and it's really, really, really sad. I mean, there's no other word for it. And to see kids suffer and not have a bed, and it's just bad. But, I mean, that's not exactly what we're talking about here. Mental health care as a whole for the district is incredibly important. And I think that what we've been doing with Grundy Mental Health has been excellent. I think that there are probably other places that we may be able to reach out to and perhaps partner with. I do think that things like a good example, the other day, my daughter is in 4th grade, she just started doing orchestra, and she discovered that her orchestra lesson butts up against her, they have like a meditation time that they have during class, and she doesn't get that now because she's taking, so every like 7 or 8 days they have orchestra, so she misses it, and on those days she has a harder time than in other days. So those sort of mental health things that we can do for teachers and students are also so important. So there's lots of little things that we can do besides the big things.
So when I present to prospective Panthers, I just did it today, especially when I have parents in the room, I mean, I tell them how important it is for us to think about health in a holistic way. We've all said it, if you're not physically healthy, mentally healthy, socially healthy, you are not going to be academically healthy. So we really need to get past a grade point for thinking about student health. You know, what does it look like in our classrooms? The other piece that this creates for our teachers, mental health ties into all of this. Teacher burnout, we have to have safe workplaces for our teachers. And that is something that is not happening in all of our classrooms consistently because we have students who are dealing with mental health issues, and it is very structured with what we do with students, how we deal with those behaviors, and sometimes that puts our teachers, our staff, our paras, and other students at risk as well. A big piece of this is our state does not fund special ed services and mental health at a real one-to-one level. They have not updated weighting for students. For those of you who don't understand, students with special needs are weighted, and we get additional funding depending on the extent of their needs. That has not been updated for decades. It is not funded fully to districts. Most districts run a very steep special ed deficit. It is not surprising for those deficits to be well over $1 million for many districts on a year-to-year basis, which means that's when we come back and we look at ways to make up that funding through our tax base. But our state has got to recognize that funding special ed services, funding mental health at a real and appreciable level for school districts for every single student in the state is critical to addressing our para retention, our teacher retention, and the health of our students. So really, so much of this just comes down to funding at the state level, and when we're talking about things like vouchers and using that funding for other uses, that all contributes to the issues we're talking about right now.
Yeah, and I'm not honestly sure what else I can add to this. Yes to everything that's been said up here about mental health. We're not in a state that has a lot of resources for mental health treatment. I know the bed shortages has been an issue for years, if not decades. To piggyback off of something Jenny said about the funding, especially on the special ed deficit thing, that's actually not entirely a state thing. That's something that we get a lot of dollars from the federal government as well. So if you're looking for a way to advocate, we need to, turn some attention towards Washington, D.C. and get them to start changing some of the guidelines for special ed funding back to districts as well. This has been a priority for the Cedar Falls School Board. I think every year we send down priorities of our board down to ISAB to present to the Delegate Assembly as ISAB as an organization starts to build their legislative priorities. And I don't think we have, in the 4 years that I have been on the board, I think mental health has been one of our priorities that we send down to ISAB. It is a priority for this district. We want to resource it and provide our students and our staff the resources they need, the opportunities they need in order to be successful in their jobs, in the classroom, and in life in general. And I will continue to help do what I can to help push that as a priority as well.
Okay, thank you. The next question will start with Bette Peterson, and has a little bit of an introduction before the actual question. This is an audience question. 2 years ago, Lincoln Elementary faced an issue with large class sizes. It was causing many issues, and many parents emailed the district regarding this. I, among other parents, received a district response from the school as a whole, with the exception of Nate Gruber, who responded to each of us extensively. When future issues arise, what is your capacity to respond and address those issues outside of monthly board meetings?
Okay, well, my understanding as a potential board member and not ever having ever served on the board is that the first, certainly I want to be responsive to the public. Somebody emails me, I would want to respond, and I'm glad to know that Nate did. But I think that my response would be to try and channel that into the next level. If that's a concern, I would guess that my response would be to direct that to the superintendent. Now, certainly I could do that, and I would encourage that parent to do that. I would assume that that parent had already spoken to the principal. And then I think, we need to go probably beyond the principal or to the superintendent. I don't think as a board, again, if we're talking about the three things that we are really, challenged to do, that's the superintendent, hiring and firing the superintendent, policy, and finance. That classroom size thing gets a little bit out of our purview. So I would say, I would head that to the superintendent. I would want to be very responsive to your concern. I think that that's important. As a board, we're elected by the public, so I want to be responsive, but I think that that issue of classroom size needs to first be dealt with by the superintendent. So I would guess that that's what I would do in response to an issue like that from a parent.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Classroom sizes they're not what we do as a board. However, I do think it's really important for members of the board to be aware of what's going on in the schools, especially if it's been a thing where it's like, okay, we've talked to the teachers, we've talked to the principal, now we need to take it to another level. And having the board understand what's happening in situations like this is important for helping perhaps make decisions at the school level.
So this is one where you might hear some different opinions up here. I have kind of evolved in my opinion of how boards communicate. Because we are a board of 7, we are not a board of 7 individuals. My preference is that our board president, we as boards that is our liaison. We do a lot of behind the scenes conversations. We check things out. We look into concerns that people have. My preference is that the board president manages communications for the board because we are a board of 7. There are things like classroom sizes. We do have parameters that we follow, and those parameters, I guarantee you, if a parent thinks their classroom size is too big, there is nothing that is going to happen that we are going to change their dissatisfaction with that. My son, my middle son, through Lincoln, was always the bubble class, and they always had 2 sections instead of 3. They were at that top limit. I guarantee you he came out and he went on to he's very successful, and he did not suffer from being in a large class size. I think sometimes this stuff is how we model it for our students as parents. There are things that, again, are not within our purview as a board, and I do think it's important that the appropriate staff member within our district is addressing these issues. And if it is not something that we as a board are responsible for, I think it is irresponsible for us to weigh in on something when we have hired people and put them in place, and I strongly believe our administrators, our principals, our teachers are making the best decisions for our students. Some of these things are just difficult issues, and there are times you're going to be unhappy, but we are still prioritizing and trying to do the best we can for your students. There is limited funding, there is limited space in schools, and that is just a reality, and sometimes you're going to be unhappy with us and the district.
Yeah, so since I got name dropped in this question,
Yeah, I probably should have left that out.
You were the only person that did respond fully and that we felt heard. Like just recognizing and replying to emails, like saying, yes, I got your email. Like it was a widespread thing, and this particular class was in fact split into 3 sections because it was clearly an issue. The teachers were not hearing us, the principal was not hearing us. It escalated multiple times. So the question was, what's your capacity to hear and respond that you're hearing parents, not necessarily about class size?
And I can say, even if we hear you, that is not something that's going to be a decision that we can make. So again, it has to go through the proper channels. I'm glad that they ended up being able to split that classroom. Those things are not always easy. We don't always have classroom space. We don't always have an extra teacher already hired. But I think it is important. I have gotten to the point, I want things to go through that proper channel. I want it to go to the teacher, I want it then to go to the principal, then I want it to go to Pam Ziegler, and then I want it to come to Andy. I want to give all of those people the opportunity to respond appropriately, and I just think that's something that we have to allow that trust in our administrative team as well. I understand what you're saying. I know it's hard because the reason I ran for the board was because I was in those shoes and I wanted people to, hear my concerns. And so, I do think we can think better as a board as to how we can make sure we're validating that your concerns are being heard. I do think we need to do it in a collaborative way. I'm sorry, I'm taking more time, but that we are speaking as one voice and we have done the work to go talk to our administrators and see what can be done and what can't be done. My fear is that sometimes if we are speaking as individuals, we may be giving false hope or false promises, and I think that is not helpful to our district or our board.
Okay, let's hear from Nate Gruber and then Mr. Orvis.
so again, since I was name dropped in this question, I'm trying to think back to what I responded to, because my guess is, thinking back to the situation, my daughter is, as Jenny mentioned, is on a bubble class at this level. And so most of the time she has had a 2-section class as she moves through Orchard Hill. We had 1 year, and I think if I'm thinking this might be what happened is, we had 1 year where halfway through the year, another teacher was brought in. Her class was split into 3 sections. Generally, though, I like to respond, and I'm not necessarily responding with promises that I will, make sure that this is looked at. I am referring you. If this is what I'm thinking of, I probably responded with that very story about my daughter, saying, I understand as a parent this can be frustrating. But I need you to visit with building principals and go through that chain of command that Jenny mentioned. This may be a difference of opinion from Jenny, but I don't, I'm not speaking to things, in terms of what the board, when I'm responding to emails, I'm offering I hear you, but here's what our policy is, here's what I need you to do next steps. I'm not speaking for the board, and I make it very clear in my responses that I do not speak for the board. I only speak for myself as an individual member, and that I have no power or sway over that as an individual member. As Jenny has mentioned multiple times, we are a board of 7. We speak with, and that board of 7 only speaks with one voice at a time. But I will, for me, I will always respond with at least compassion that I have heard your message, and we will discuss it as a board. Maybe not, but I have heard you.
Okay, Mr. Orvis?
I'll start off by apologizing because I was on the board at the time when this happened, and I did not respond immediately to you. Let me talk a little bit about that. I'm going to be echoing some of what my fellow board members at the time are saying, and that is, one of the things is outside of board meetings, and I know that's not the way you meant it directly, but we have to be very careful about how we meet as a board. We cannot get together and communicate with 4 of us in the room at the same time. It's an illegal quorum. We cannot do that. But you're right, you do deserve a response. But before we do that, as a member, we're obliged to actually go back the other way through that chain of command and make sure that everything that we've been talking about these issues with the people that we've entrusted with this job. Going back to the specific issue about the larger class sizes, I'm in Waverly Shell Rock right now. We are closing 3 elementaries and opening 2. So this means redrawing boundary lines. And I mentioned I mentioned a long litany of things that I do, and one of them is to help keep organized the number of students and help the scheduling and all that sort of thing. And I was asked if I could help draw the boundary line, and I said, that is above my pay grade. I am not going to do that. Because I know what it can be like. It can be very hard for families to make those changes. They're disappointed a lot. What can happen, though, is I've seen it before, where we have unexpected families move into a district, and we weren't prepared for that. And all of a sudden, although we expected to have X number of kindergarten students, we didn't expect 70% of them to live in a very small area, and all of a sudden, one school gets overwhelmed with that. I would like to be able to find ways to prepare for those situations. I was glad that we could do that split, and I know, as Jenny said, it's not necessarily as hard on the students, but it can be really hard on the staff too, when there's a huge difference between 24 and 28 students in a classroom. It is a tremendous amount of work in classroom management for those people that are in that situation. So we just wanted to make sure that at least we understood all the parameters before we responded, and again, respond as a board and not make promises that we couldn't keep.
This also is an audience question, and Tony Wood. Does every student every day seem an appropriate slogan for the Cedar Falls School District? Why or why not?
Wow, okay. I believe yes and no. I know, really wishy-washy answer, sorry about that. I believe it has the potential for that. Every student, every day, that's a lot of students and a lot of work to go for every student. If we can see students where they're at, for who they are, no matter who they are and where they're at, if we can meet them there, I think that that's where we are there for every student every day. Do we meet that every single day? No, we're all human. There's days where things go wrong in classrooms. There's days where teachers have a bad day, students have bad days, but I do believe that if we can be there for every kid as much as possible, as much as humanly possible every day, then I do believe that we meet that slogan.
I don't really love slogans. I really don't like tradition of excellence. I said this at the last forum. I think sometimes looking back on the success we've had in Cedar Falls keeps us from looking forward and thinking how we can grow and embrace change. I think every student every day, I think it's an appropriate way for us to approach it. I think the weight of this is felt by our teachers because they know that every student every day, what it means, and I think every one of us in this room can think of a teacher that impacted us profoundly to this day, or our children, in a really amazing positive way. And we can also think of that teacher who impacted us in a really profoundly negative way that was not a good experience and had some kind of lasting impact on us. It's hard for our teachers. They really can't afford to have a bad day, because if they have a bad day, some of us can go to work and have a bad day and, take it out on our desk or, even a coworker, and, something's not, the earth's not gonna fall apart. But if our teachers come or our paras come, a bus driver, any staff member comes and has a bad day and has to, let that out on a child or with a child in the room, that can have a huge impact on a child. So I do support every student every day, but I think that That's why we all need to understand why the profession of education, anyone who chooses to take part in what we do as a district for our students, we should give them the grace, respect, and our gratitude for bringing their best selves to their job, their classroom, their bus route, their meal planning, whatever they do for us every day. I have been so lucky to have 3 students who so far have been, come out of our district and are successful and are happy in their lives. And I owe a lot of that gratitude to the people that they interacted with in our district every day, at Lincoln, at Holmes, at our high school. But I think that is a huge weight that they bear with them every day, and that's why we as a society have got to find a way that we are re-embracing our respect and honor for this profession, because they mean so much to us, and they're creating the citizens of tomorrow. And we talk about democracy, that's really who's having a profound effect on our future voters and our future citizens. So thank you all for what you do, truly.
Yeah, I find myself in agreement with Jenny on the, I'm not a huge fan of slogans at times because they put us into boxes that maybe it's not intended. Every student, every day, what Jenny mentioned about it being a pressure on our staff. As I alluded to before, being a new teacher, every day is exhausting. But I do like it as what I like it as is as an aspirational slogan, and that it's clearly understood to be an aspirational slogan. Unfortunately, I don't think it always is, and so I think that's where some of the parts of it become, problematic, because as much as we would love to get every student through with the exact same level of education and preparation and training, the laws of numbers and statistics just say that isn't entirely possible. Now, I'm not trying to say we have to give up on those students, but sometimes we have to be realistic about what we can accomplish as a public school district, trying to educate every single child within our community. Again, aspirational, it's a perfect slogan, but we need to make sure that we remember that it is.
I wish I could remember the author who talks about an infinite goal, and that's what one of these is. It would be impossible to reach it, but I think the SEL training that our staff has had, our social and emotional learning training that our staff has had, has made us think about this in terms of instead of thinking, why do I get all the problematic students in my class, we're starting to ask, why is this student continually acting out? What is it that's going on in the student's life? I had a student the other day who was having a difficult time with a teacher, and later on, while I'm working at the other part of my job, tech support, he came in and said, I need to borrow another computer today. And we asked him where his was, and he said, well, my mom took my car away from me. I had to go live with Dad, and the computer's in the car. And so in other words, you just don't know what's going on in that child's life. On the flip side of that, that same day I had a conversation with a staff member who came in to borrow a computer, and she forgot her computer because she'd been up with a fussy baby all night long. So, I think hopefully this is doing is having us ask, okay, what's the why behind this behavior? That we all are having difficult days, that maybe there's quite a bit that the staff member, the student is up against. Let's try to be a little bit more empathetic about what's going on in the situation.
Every student, every day. That's a tough one. Any parent out there? Let's go. I mean, come on. That's very lofty. But I think Jeff's right. We all can acknowledge that, everybody has that day when there's something back there that's not making things go right. So I think if it just creates an awareness of, we need to kind of be tuned into what's happening with our students today, what's happening with our coworkers today, that we're just not, we're not quite tuned into, and we don't know what's happening behind the scenes. And if we're tuned into every student every day, we know that that's not possible because we have children. And, but I think it is. It's a nice goal, and I think we have people that can work towards that, certainly, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We're at the point where we have time for one more final question, and then we'll have, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing statements, and then we will have some wrap-up comments.
Can it be a positive one? Can we end on a positive?
Yeah, yes, we were thinking that, yes.
Yes, I love it.
Well,
Thank you.
I think it's positive.
You're working so hard,
Okay,
Jenny.
Jenny Leeper. What would you consider to be the top 3 priorities if elected to the school board, and where can these be found publicly? Is that a positive one? I think so.
Am I starting?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to kind of look at it as more of a, what are some of the great things we're doing? So SEL, social emotional learning, PLCs, professional learning communities in our districts, those are great things. As Jeff said earlier, I love our CAPS program. Center for Advanced Professional Studies is a program that our high school students get to take part in right now. We are moving that down to the lower levels. We have a pilot program working in our junior highs right now, and we're working then with our upper elementary to do CAPS. What I love about CAPS is it is taking knowledge and working with our community partners, business partners, educational partners in all sorts of different threads. We have a med thread, a medical thread, we have a nursing thread, we've got construction, business, innovation. I'm going to miss some STEM engineering, but what we do is we partner with the community. We don't ask them for money, we ask them for their time and their mentorship. So our students get to go in and actually, it's not a job shadow, they are creating content, they are creating problem solving with business partners. They are known as associates, and it allows them to apply learning in a real way. So they are learning English and problem solving and math, and they're actually doing work that is relatable so that they know how to do this. What I love most about CAPS is it is not just for high-achieving students. Some of the best students in CAPS are students who don't play the game of school well, but they do really well when they are out in the real world and actually applying learning just by doing. So I love that we are moving that towards a K-12 model. So everybody who has a potential high schooler, if you hear CAPS, definitely look at our CAPS program and take part in that. I'm super excited about the opening of our new high school. Those spaces, the way we have designed our high school and the professional development we are doing with our staff should really transform how we are approaching learning and teaching for our students. Again, it is collaborative, it is going to be cross-disciplinary, it is going to reflect what they are actually doing, what we do in our everyday life, which is not learning in silos and not working in silos. We work across disciplines, we work across departments, and that is something that our teachers are going to be able to really explore in our new facility. So those are some things that I'm very excited about for our district.
All right. Yeah, and I'm going to echo quite a bit of what Jenny just said, because those are some of the things that she has said are some of the exact same things I'm excited about, and I think are just strengths for our district. The CAPS program particularly, I don't know if I need to say much more about it because Jenny did a great job at outlining what CAPS does, but just that opportunity for our students to get that real life problem-solving work experience while in high school in a career that they may have interest in, not something, a part-time job at whoever will hire them as a high schooler. CAPS is exciting. We are one of the pioneering districts in the state for this type of program. We are the hub for, I don't know, 6 or 7 around this area, and plus a couple on the heading west as well. Part of that I alluded to was MIRE with that education program that we're trying to get Cedar Falls students who are underrepresented minorities to come back to Cedar Falls to teach, so then students that they have we talked about the mirrors, they see themselves, our future students can see themselves in Cedar Falls as an educator. SEL programming is fantastic and very effective. I mentioned my son's a kindergartner, and he's probably going to hate me in 10 years if he ever sees this. But when he has had, I need to tell this story because when he has some difficult times at home, a response that he has been saying is, "You're dipping out of my bucket," and my wife and I just kind of look at each other and go, there's that SEL component that's really starting to take root at that. And just to echo, the new high school is going to be a crown jewel for us for many years. That's going to be a fantastic facility, and I can't wait to see that open up and and become that resource for us.
If I heard the question correctly, it was about our goals and where we could find those goals. Is that
Top 3 priorities,
okay.
yes.
So first off, my top priority would be that we have a safe and effective school. That it's EdPsych 101. You cannot teach a child anything who isn't nourished, who doesn't feel safe. That's goal number 1. We have to have an inviting environment for all of our students. There's a lot of misinformation out there about what actually happens in a public school. I can tell you, I've been there for nearly 40 years, and I actually do enjoy going to work every day. I guess maybe it's not, well, yeah, it's always work. But, but I want that environment for our students at Cedar Falls Schools as well. My next goal would be we do that with the staff that we have. So we need to attract and retain the best staff that we possibly can. There's no doubt about it. I've seen such fantastic people working from all facets of the school, support staff, classroom teachers, guidance counselors, administration, do such fantastic things for our students. And if we need to maintain that. We need to find young people who really want to be in this career and love it as much as I do every day. Another goal for me would be to incorporate new technologies into our school, and that's going to include artificial intelligence. It's one of the things I mentioned on my post on Facebook, that's going to be a challenge and an opportunity at the same time. I was talking to someone in this room here yesterday about artificial intelligence and how that might change this person's profession. And he made a good point and said, we still are always going to have the human factor in all of this. And if we don't have that, it's going to be very difficult to come up with a great school or any other thing that we wanted to do. Thank you.
Okay, I will, my 2 highest priorities are, I think probably I've kind of already mentioned, and in fact, they echo Jeff's. I would say, again, that we as a district are preparing healthy young adults intellectually, emotionally, and physically to go forward in the world, and perhaps someday want to return and educate their children in Cedar Falls. And that we continue to recruit exceptional staff from preschool through high school. I think we only need to look at the number of merit scholars, all-state musicians, outstanding athletes, and really countless other kudos extended to our high schoolers to recognize what a high level of staff people we have in this district. And credit to all the staff that touched these students. This didn't start when they got to high school. It certainly started when they walked in the doors of the schools as kindergartners, that they have a love of learning, a love of trying new things, and have had that level of success. So I think a strong school system is one of the biggest attractions a community can offer, and we have that in Cedar Falls. And where can they find that? My priorities on Facebook. I will post them on my Facebook page so that they can find them there.
Okay. I'm going to echo safe, inclusive schools. Every kid needs to be accepted for who they are, seen for what they are, and met where they are. And I feel the same way about teachers. There's a lot of teachers who probably also don't really feel accepted and don't feel included. And we need to work as a team to make sure that all of those teachers and students are felt included so they feel safe. I do want to echo Jenny talking about CAPS. I saw the wonderful presentation that was given at the last school board meeting about how it's being, the model is going down to the lower levels, and it's super exciting to see. It looks, I mean, I was watching it going, where was that when I was a kid? Because that looks so much fun. Like, that would have made everything, I don't know, who would I have been? Somebody else completely, maybe. You don't know. So I think that doing the CAPS program and taking it down to the different levels of students is going to take students who maybe they aren't the kind of kids who would go to college. Maybe they would be better going to community college and getting like a certificate or doing nursing or some sort of construction or other technological things that I just obviously can't think of right now. But those kids would benefit from doing CAPS. And I think the sooner we get the kids into CAPS, the better. It's just a really great program. Additionally, I mean, there's this idea of like working as a team and making everything very inclusive just to help our students become compassionate, empathetic citizens who can think critically and make the world a better place. And I think that is something that happens every day at Cedar Falls, and we can continue that.
Okay, thank you. This is your opportunity for a closing statement, a 2-minute closing statement, and Mr. Gruber, we will begin with you.
All right. Well, I want to again thank our organizers, the League of Women Voters of Black Hawk and Bremer Counties, the NAACP of Black Hawk County, our moderators, Leandra and Carol, Channel 15 and anyone else who was involved in prepping this and organizing this forum together. And I want to thank every one of you who were in attendance tonight for coming out tonight. In closing, I would like to continue to serve our community by serving on the school board. I strongly believe in the mission of public schools, of public education, and 4 years of service on the board has only strengthened my belief that Cedar Falls Schools is an incredible asset for our community. I would welcome the opportunity to continue to serve on the board, and I would continue to work with and advise the district's leadership team as they work to provide our students with the best path forward towards success and achievement in their lives for our students. If anyone has any further questions with me, please get in touch with me. I'll be happy to get together over a cup of coffee or something to chat. I would consider it an honor to again be chosen by Cedar Falls voters to continue to represent them on the Cedar Falls Schools Board of Education for another 4 years. I feel like I have worked hard and done my best to represent you the past 4 years. I hope I have earned your trust, your respect, and your vote on November 7th as I seek a second term representing you. Thank you.
Okay.
I hope I've made it clear that education is a passion of mine. It's not only my career, I'm also involved outside of my regular employment, that I'm an active member of my professional association, and that has really given me the opportunity to learn and understand school law and school finance. As I said before, my experience on the board helps me understand the obligations and the authority and lack of authority. As Jenny has mentioned a few times, it isn't as glamorous as it all might seem for an unpaid position. I've had many opportunities to work with educators from across the state, and I've had many opportunities to work with educators within this district. And we do have a great staff here, and I'm inspired by them, so this is reciprocal for me. I learn from this board as well as I can take some of these things back to my home district and see how would they fit there. One of the benefits from my experience is I don't know all the answers, but I do know a lot of the questions, and I think sometimes that's more important to know what to ask rather than what you can share. And I hope that comes across. I have several experiences, and again, this is a passion of mine. I want to see Cedar Falls Schools succeed. Thank you.
Okay, again, I would like to thank the NAACP of Black Hawk County and the Black Hawk Bremer League of Women Voters, as well as all the other participants that made this forum possible tonight. I would be honored to represent the citizens of Cedar Falls on the school board and understand the importance of serving all the district's students. I'll do my best to foster unity among the entities that serve this district, the board, the superintendent, and all of its employees. I believe this is a wonderful time of change and growth for the city of Cedar Falls and the school district. Moving into our state-of-the-art high school and sharing the natatorium with our community is something we can all be very proud of. So many great things happening in our community. The future is looking very bright. Please vote on or before November 7th. And remember, with me, you can bet on the board.
I don't have the same background as everybody here, and I know that I don't probably have as much knowledge. I do feel that my background in the arts gives me the kind of teamwork ethic that you need to work in a group of differing people. I believe that my experiences with my kids in Cedar Falls schools is a main driver for wanting to be on the board. I want to see what my kids have had at Lincoln, that I want to see them get that everywhere, because it's been amazing. Growing up, I felt like somebody else put forth effort for me to go to school in a public school, and I feel like I need to give back. So I'm hoping that I can earn your vote on November 7th or before, because you know that whole thing happens too. That's all.
So I want to thank everybody who took the time to come here tonight and everybody watching. Knowing that you support public education, regardless of how our conversations went tonight, it's so important. I do truly believe, and I think everyone here does, public education is transformative for a student. It can help a student who doesn't see a lot of future really realize they have potential. Every single one of our students has some kind of strength or gift. And if we can help them realize that in our district, that is something that you just can't ever understand. We are not paid, but that is such an intrinsic reward for us, and that is why we are all here. Please offer us your grace. We are here because we are trying to do what's best for students. We do have limits and we do have constraints, but we're all here for the right reasons, and it is for the success of your students, for our former students, for our future students. I want to thank everybody who's running and willing to give back and do this job. It is truly rewarding. I know we have some of our former board members here, and they have mentored me in my board tenure. So thank you both for coming here tonight, and you will never understand how much you have meant to me and helped me grow into the person I have been. So thank you for doing that. Please vote. Take your time to be kind to each other and offer grace. We have a lot of amazing things happening in our district. Please try and not get distracted. I know it can be discouraging, and I know there can be a lot of noise out there, but we are so fortunate to live in this community and have the resources and the passion that we do from our staff. So please try and focus, offer grace to each other, be kind, and just thank you for being here. The last thing I want to say is thank you all for electing me to the board. I have been able to hand diplomas to all 3 of my children, and that is something I cannot thank you enough for. So thank you for having me be one of your board members.
Before we close, I would like to mention that the deadline for requesting an absentee ballot has passed. Completed absentee ballots must be received at the election office by 8 p.m. on Election Day. There is an informational sheet outside the door which contains directions for several ways to vote, directions for how to view a sample ballot for your polling place, all the candidate names, and also a concise summary of a public measure to continue an existing 1% sales and service tax set to expire at the end of 2025. Thank you to the audience, and most of all to the candidates for their enlightening responses and being willing to serve. Good night.
you.
Thank you.